English through stories. Intermediate English. The Shepherdess and the Chimney Sweep. Have you ever loved someone but felt trapped by rules you did not choose? In this story, you will practice natural English through a romantic fairy tale about love, courage, and difficult choices. Listen carefully, read along, and think about what you would do. Don't just study English, live it through stories. The Porcelain Shepherdess. In a quiet room filled with antiques, a beautiful porcelain figure named Elsbeth stood on a table. She was a shepherdess, wearing a dress with golden edges and holding a delicate staff. Though she was made of clay, she felt deep emotions. She spent her days looking across the table at someone she truly loved, dreaming of a different life. The brave chimney sweep. Just a few inches away stood Soren. He was a chimney sweep, also made of porcelain. He was painted with dark soot to look like a real worker, and he carried a small ladder. Soren was brave and kind. He loved Elsbeth more than anything else in the world, and he promised to protect her from any danger. A secret romance. Elsbeth and Soren were very happy together on their table. They could not move much, but they talked in whispers when the humans were away. They dreamed of a future where they could be free. Their love was strong, but their world was small, and they did not know that trouble was watching them from the dark corner. The Mahogany Satyr. On a tall cabinet nearby lived Torsten. He was a satyr carved from dark mahogany wood. Torsten had horns and goat legs, and he looked very frightening. He was old and grumpy, and he wanted Elsbeth to be his wife. He watched the two porcelain lovers with jealousy, waiting for the perfect moment to take Elsbeth away from Soren. The master of the house. In the center of the table stood Kai, a large porcelain mandarin. He was much bigger than the others and could nod his head. Kai acted like he was the wise master of all the figurines. Because he was the tallest, he believed he had the power to decide everyone's future. Torsten decided to ask Kai for permission to marry Elsbeth. A terrible agreement. Torsten told Kai that he wanted to marry the shepherdess. He promised that Elsbeth would live in his dark cabinet with his silver treasures. Kai thought this was a wonderful idea. Without asking Elsbeth, Kai nodded his heavy porcelain head. The marriage was decided. Elsbeth was terrified of the dark cabinet and the scary satyr, but Kai did not care. Years of porcelain. When Elsbeth heard the news, she began to cry. She did not want to live in a dark cabinet with Torsten. She looked at Soren with sadness in her eyes. "I cannot stay here," she whispered. "Kai has given me away to that wooden monster. If we do not leave now, we will be separated forever. Please, help me escape." The Great Plan. Soren took Elsbeth's hand. He was not afraid of Kai or Torsten. "We will go out into the wide world," he said. "I know the way through the chimney. It is a difficult path, but it is the only way to be free. Do you have the courage to follow me?" Elsbeth nodded. She was ready to leave everything behind. Into the fireplace. They reached the fireplace, which looked like a giant cave. Soren led the way, carrying his ladder to help them climb. The air was cold, and the smell of old ash was very strong. Elsbeth felt small and fragile. But she trusted Soren. She followed him into the darkness, leaving the safety of the parlour behind them forever. The difficult climb. The inside of the chimney was very narrow. Soren showed Elspeth where to put her feet on the bricks. It was a long way up, and the soot made their porcelain clothes dirty. Elspeth's heart was beating fast. She looked up and saw a tiny circle of light far above them. That light was the sky, and it was their destination. Reaching the top. After a long struggle, they finally reached the top of the chimney. They stepped out onto the roof of the house. The fresh air felt wonderful on their faces. Soren helped Elspeth sit down on the edge of the chimney. They had done it. They were outside, far away from Kai and the scary mahogany satyr in the room below. Under the stars. It was a beautiful night. The moon was bright, and thousands of stars sparkled in the sky. Below them, the city was quiet. Elspeth had never seen anything so big or so beautiful. For a moment, she felt like she was in a dream. She leaned against Soren, feeling the cool night breeze. They were finally together, and completely alone. The fear of vastness. However, as Elspeth looked at the endless sky and the huge world, she began to feel afraid. The world was much bigger than she had imagined. There was no end to the horizon. She thought about her comfortable table and her friends. The silence of the night felt heavy, and the height of the roof made her feel dizzy. A difficult choice. Soren loved the freedom of the roof, but he loved Elspeth more. He did not want her to be unhappy. If that is what you want, we will go back, he promised. But remember, Kai might be waiting for us. We might be in trouble. Elspeth didn't care. She just wanted to feel safe on her wooden table again. The way down. They began the long crawl back down the dark chimney. It was even harder to go down than it was to go up. They were covered in even more soot, and Elspeth's white dress was now grey. But she did not mind. Every step brought them closer to the room she knew. Soren guarded her carefully as they descended the bricks. Returning to the parlour. Finally, they stepped out of the fireplace and back into the room. Everything was quiet, but something was different. They looked toward the table where they used to live. They expected to see Kai and Torsten waiting for them, but the room felt strange and empty. They moved slowly toward the furniture, wondering what had happened while they were gone. The fallen mandarin. When they reached the table, they saw a shocking sight. Kai, the large porcelain mandarin, was lying on the floor in shattered pieces. When he saw them escaping through the chimney, he had tried to follow them, but he was too heavy. He had fallen off the table and broken his back. He could no longer nod his head or give orders. Torsten's anger. Torsten the satyr was still on his cabinet, but he was silent. He looked down at the broken Kai with frustration. Without Kai to give permission, Torsten had no power over Elsbeth. He could only watch from a distance. The mahogany monster was stuck on his shelf, unable to reach the porcelain lovers who had returned from the world. Mending the broken. The humans who lived in the house found Kai the next morning. They were sad to see him broken, so they decided to fix him. They used strong glue to put his pieces back together. However, they could not fix him perfectly. They had to put a metal rivet in his neck to hold his head steady. Kai was whole again, but different. No more nods. Soren and Elsbeth climbed back onto the table. They were nervous. They looked at Kai, expecting him to be angry. "Wise master," Soren said bravely, "we have returned." Kai looked at them, but he did not move. Because of the metal rivet in his neck, he could no longer nod his head. He could never again agree to Torsten's demands. Torsten's defeat. Torsten shouted from his cabinet, "Well, is the wedding still on? Do I get my bride?" Kai tried to nod, but his neck was stuck. He could only stare straight ahead. Torsten realized he had lost. He would never have Elsbeth. He turned away in anger, retreating into the shadows of his dark mahogany cabinet, defeated and alone. A life of freedom. Elsbeth and Soren were finally safe. They stood together on their table, no longer afraid of the satyr or the mandarin's orders. They'd seen the world and decided that their love was the most important thing, no matter where they lived. They were still porcelain, and they were still fragile, but they were finally masters of their own lives. Forever together. The two figurines lived happily on the table for many years. They often looked up at the chimney and remembered their night under the stars. They were glad to be home, and they were glad to be together. Their love was like porcelain, beautiful and precious, yet strong enough to survive the greatest journey. What about you? The two figurines chose love and returned home, carrying their memories with them. Have you ever taken a risk for someone you loved? What made it worth it, or what made it difficult? Think about a moment that changed how you see love, safety, or freedom. If you like, share your thoughts in the comments. Writing or speaking helps you practice English and reflect more deeply. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share for more fun English lessons.